What's up everybody, Matt Maran here for another My Week With video. So this week I've been driving the 2024 Kia EV9, and in particular this is the Land trim, so the second from the top trim here. And I really like the EV9. I already did a full review on it back on the initial launch where I was driving the GT line version, which was very impressive. Now this one has 73 less pound-feet of torque for this Land and all the other all-wheel drive versions here, but still it does the same horsepower, 379 horsepower. But so if you want to hear all of my thoughts on the EV9, go on an in-depth tour of the interior and all the specs and all the details. I will link the actual review video for this at the end of this one. But as far as this video goes, my impressions of living with the EV9 here for a week. Overall, it's really nice to live with. I love having, Telluride levels of space with this much power as well. I mean, it's really punchy and really fun. Our toddler loved all the accelerations in this, and that extra grunt is very much appreciated. Not like the V6 in the Telluride was underpowered, but this is just nice to always have the extra power there. A couple of things though that I did notice compared to like Telluride, for example, is the ride quality. So ride quality is pretty good, and on smooth roads, I mean, it just glides over everything. But there were the occasional bumps that sent harsh jitters through the cabin here, and that's just because the suspension here, when you have a huge heavy battery pack, just there's a little less forgiveness sometimes. And so even though this car has like nice meaty sidewalls, it still is just not going to be quite as soft as a Telluride, in my opinion. It's not a huge departure. It's not like we're riding around in a sports car or anything. But, if I'm being a reviewer here and being critical and, nitpicking, I just remember the Telluride just feeling a tiny bit softer. But other than that, I mean, it's so quiet. Of course, the refinement is much better than Telluride in that regard. I mean, this really does feel luxury car levels of quietness and refinement otherwise there. And other things that I noticed, another luxury car type thing, is this Meridian stereo, which I didn't have much time to play around with on the launch event, but it's a really good sounding stereo. Very strong, very clear, and hooked up to the wireless Apple CarPlay, which you finally have wireless CarPlay and wireless Android Auto here in the EV9 and other new Kias and Hyundai products here coming, in the next year here or so. But it's just so nice to have that. So I was able to listen to my full high quality music here with CarPlay and listen to it with this awesome Meridian stereo, which is fantastic. Another thing I really have appreciated are these headrests. They have this like cool mesh. They almost feel like you're like in a hammock for your head. That's how I can describe them. They're so soft and comfortable, and not like I'm always putting my head on the headrest, but when you do, it's like, wow, that's a really nice headrest. I wouldn't mind a pillow that just feels like this instead of a regular pillow. It's like really that nice. And so there's some nice things there for sure. Now there was a few little downsides. The primary one is the proximity key wasn't perfect with its execution, because since this vehicle has flush door handles, it uses you walking up to the car to present those door handles to you, but it didn't always get it quite right. And there was a couple of times where I either had to touch the actual button in order to present those door handles to me, or just pull out the key fob, because one time it just wasn't doing it quick enough and I wasn't going to wait for it. So I just decided to take matters into my own hands, and that is the nice thing with still having a key fob. You can still do that, but that's the only little downside. It was also a little slow sometimes to lock. Now whenever you walk away from the vehicle, it will lock itself, but there's sometimes where the car isn't visible and I want to know that it's locked before I walk away from it. And sometimes I'd have to rest my finger on the pad for a couple of seconds before it would finally lock up on me. So I mean, again, really minor nitpick. It just goes to show just how good the EV9 is, that the only things I can complain about slightly are the ride and the proximity key not being perfect. But those are my main two complaints here. The other thing though that I was actually really impressed with was the efficiency. So over my nearly 100 miles of driving here, I've been averaging 2.9 miles per kilowatt hour, which is really good. I see numbers like that for much smaller, lighter, more aerodynamic vehicles. And the fact that this is, as blocky as it is, as large as it is, as, heavy as it is, and the fact that you're still getting that kind of efficiency, to me is very impressive. And I was expecting to see lower than this. And so pleasantly surprised with the efficiency here in the EV9, and I think they did a really good job. I mean, they said they have a bunch of tricks with the aerodynamics here to make it more aerodynamic than maybe it looks, but I was really surprised to get efficiency this good. The last thing that I'd really talk about a little bit more here is the pricing. I'm not going to really get into competitors because, again, there is no real competitor. The Volkswagen Buzz, ID Buzz, is the closest thing as far as, three-row electric stuff that's remotely close in price to this, with everything else, being like the Tesla Model X, the Rivian, and stuff like that, which are much more expensive. But so as far as the pricing, I mean, these aren't cheap either. And so this one, as tested, is just under $76,000. And this isn't even the top. The GT line version comes in, about $2,500 more expensive. But this Land trim, I think, is really good. If you're not someone who needs the most power, I mean, this is still plenty of power, way more, than a Telluride and things like that. Really punchy. You're not going to be wanting for power out of this, again, as a family hauler. And, so you save $2,500 over the GT line. I think that's kind of a no-brainer. I mean, unless you like the sportier touches of the GT line. Otherwise, I think you get basically all the same stuff here in this for that nice little discount. Also, this one does have, with that, $76,000 as tested price, this one has this matte paint, which I feel like matte paint's a little iffy, from a longevity standpoint and stuff. I mean, we'll see how this one holds up. Only time will tell for that, but that's $1,000 extra, so you can knock that off the price if you go for a regular paint color. Putting one of these right around $73,000. And there's also like the wind trim, I believe, is the like lower all-wheel drive one. Those are about $65,000. You do lose the heated and cooled second row seats and like the 360 camera and a couple of other things, but all of these come really well equipped, so I don't really feel like you're missing out too much with that, unless you want those amenities for that second row there. But that's $65,000 brings you a lot lower with a price tag for, again, not too many sacrifices. You still get heated and cooled seats, heated steering wheel in that lower version as well. And of course there are lower versions even beyond that if you're okay with just rear wheel drive and all of that. But the other thing though to mention, I usually don't talk about in the current moment pricing because that it quickly gets outdated, but if you are watching this shortly after I've uploaded it, dealers currently are offering like $10,000 or more off. At least that's what they're advertising online for these, and then that puts it pretty close to Telluride pricing. With like you still have a few less things, but like for that $65,000 wind trim, you knock it down $10,000 to $55,000. Loaded Telluride is going to be right around there as well. And yes, you don't have the heated and cooled second row seats like the Telluride gives you at that price point. So there's still a slight premium here, but it's a big discount. And I mean, that was really kind of the price premium for the most part for this over the Telluride. And now if dealers are getting rid of that, and if you can get lease deals, get the tax credit with leasing, and also the fact that I believe starting in May here, these will be eligible for the 3750 tax credit at least, and they will eventually be able to get the full tax credit here towards the end of this year supposedly. And so that'll also sweeten the deal on these. So I think if you can get a good deal on one of these, you get some incentives on them, you get some tax credits, you get all that kind of stuff that really brings the price down, so that you might not actually have much of a premium to pay over a Telluride. It might even potentially come out to be less than a Telluride, depending on exactly what you're looking for, what you need, and what you're willing to live without. But that's where this gets a lot more compelling. You hear 70,000 plus, forget it. Like, I get it, it's not very exciting at that price point. Once you start getting down into the 60s and the 50s, and you start to get these, in a competitive price range to anything else that's three rows, then it's like, this is faster than Telluride, this is more luxurious than Telluride, it's more comfortable outside of, maybe that slight ride difference, better tech, it's a lot of upsides here. And again, you have fantastic fast charging and, plenty of range, 280 miles of range in this Land trim, for example. So I really think the EV9 is fantastic, and if the pricing, falls in line with what people are willing to pay here as, they sweeten the deal on these, then I think that this is going to really be poised to, be the king of the electric three-row segment that has yet to really, come onto the scene. This is the first out there, and I think, not only is it just the first, but it's fantastic, and I think that a lot of companies are going to really struggle to do something better than this, because, Kia has been leading with three rows in many ways, for several years now. So we will see what the competition brings up here in the next few years, but in the meantime, if you want an electric three-row, the EV9 is pretty much your only choice, and in my opinion, it is also a very good choice as well. I really enjoyed my week with it here. But anyway, that's all of my thoughts here on the EV9. Let me know your thoughts on it in the comments below. Huge thanks to Kia for providing me here with this EV9 to review for you guys today. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.